Hey everybody, welcome back to Record-ology. Why am I dressed like this? Well, we are on location doing an event for Rain's Place, which is my wife's channel, doing Vlogmas events. It's gonna be a really cool event, by the way. You need to check that out, link down below. But I am wearing, as Adam LeWoo would say, an appropriate t-shirt because we're gonna be looking at a Sesame Street themed thing. It's gonna be a part of a duel of children's turntables. We've never tried this before. Anyway, you're not gonna wanna miss this.
Welcome to Record-ology.
This isn't something you see every day. Two kids record players pitted up against each other, going head to head, battling for the coveted position of best kids record player. Now, there are a lot of other kid record players, but these are the only two that I have, experience with, so I figured this would be a good place to start. On the left, we have the venerable 1978 Fisher-Price record player, not to be confused with the toy record player that wasn't a real record player. And on the right, we have the early 80s, like 82, 83-ish, Fisher-Price Sesame Street phonograph. They're not the same device, not by a long shot. Well, in some ways they are, in some ways they're not. Let's go ahead and take a look at each, see how they compare, and even do a sound test. Now, we've had each of these on the show in the past, but there's been a lot of people that have joined us. By the way, welcome, if that's one of you. And I think it's always good every once in a while to kind of go over things and reintroduce things, and this is no exception. This is super nostalgic for me. This was my first record player. Well, actually, I had the blue and white version. It didn't work right, and then my mom ended up finding this one at a garage sale. This would have been probably mid-80s, like 86, so it wasn't new when I had it. It predates me a little bit. I'm old, but not quite that old. And mine, I don't think I had the lid. I think mine was just the record player itself, and I used it to death. And the actual one is lost to history. I purchased this same model from somebody on Craigslist a few years ago. So we've done a tear down on it. That was a mistake because it uses proprietary child-safe screws that I didn't have the right tool for. And but it is interesting. It's a rim drive unit. It's clunky, but you know what? It's genius. It's got some genius features, specifically considering this is built for kids. And to this day, these are quite popular on eBay, and they can fetch anywhere from like $30 to $70. I've seen them go for $100. Or I should say I've seen them listed for $100. It's always good to go by what they're selling for, not what they're listed for. I paid like $15, $20 for this. If you have this too, or even the blue one, either one of those will go for 30, 25 to 35. I would say for a working one like this. Don't spend more than that. There's still millions of them out there. They made so many of them. But what makes this genius? Because yeah, it's not going to be a hi-fi record player or turntable. It is going to be a rugged device created for grubby little hands and people that don't know anything about records or how delicate they can be. And this is why so many records that for children are beat up. And if you find a good condition one, it's a miracle. Let's start with a 45 adapter. It's built in. Check this out. This is so genius. It literally just rotates up and down. Nothing to get lost. I mean, it seems so simple, but if that piece came off, guaranteed it wouldn't be around anymore. So that was brilliant. Also, there's no sound dampening whatsoever. You don't need it on a record player like this, but you can put your hands on this, and I'm sure I did at some point, and it's not going to damage anything. It's rim drive, so there's a wheel in here spinning an inner rim. Next thing that I think is brilliant about this is you can go like this and you're not damaging anything. Okay, it's not the best thing to do because the needle is still touching down, but you're not going to break the needle off by doing this. It's actually designed to be able to do this. I know that was painful. I'm sorry I put you through that.
Stop doing that.
Stop doing that.
Stop doing that.
Stop doing that.
The reason why it's okay is the stylus, the cartridge, is on this little lever here. So as soon as it gets too much weight, it just recesses up here and it's protected by this plastic. So again, genius. You can still scratch records. It's not 100% foolproof, but, you know, it fixes the problem of, you know, it being like smashed down and the stylus broken. This cartridge, by the way, you can find new old stock versions of this. It's one of those deals where it's the cartridge and stylus all in one piece. Yeah, and then the other thing that's genius too is that when it's in its rest, there's a little piece of plastic here that lifts it up right behind the stylus and retracts it. So that is genius. Another thing that's genius, again, there's so many genius things on this, is the lid design. You may be looking at that and saying, oh, it's just a lid. Who cares? But this little raised area here has a very specific function. The hinges on mine are busted, by the way, so it's supposed to just rotate back and stop. But let's say that the kid leaves the tone arm over here. When you close the lid, it puts the tone arm back in the correct position. How did it do that? This piece of plastic here. So as it comes down, it scoots it over by coming into contact with that arm. So as soon as the lid goes down, it gets stored in the right position, and then from there it can't move. So you can carry it at any angle, and it's not gonna fall into any other position. Cord wraps up on the bottom, and again, genius because you can't, you know, lose it. I mean, even just having the handle go through the lid as well as the device itself, it's pretty dang smart. There's no audio connections. There's no headphone jack. It is just a mono record player, compatible with stereo records, no problem with its built-in speaker. It is a 2-speed record player, as you can see there. The on and off switch goes into 2 positions, 33 or 45. And down here, we've got the volume knob. Yeah, I mean, that's literally it. It's as simple, basic, and rugged as you can imagine. So let's go ahead and look at the other one, and then we're going to do a sound test. Now, this one still has its box, which is awesome. It still has that, you know, vintage trademark look of the Fisher-Price toys of that era, the Fisher-Price font. And as you can see, this unit is the Big Bird Sesame Street edition. Look how happy these kids are to have this thing. And this has some key differences from the other unit that make it noteworthy. And I saw this thing in use, not as a novelty or a funny item, but as a useful item. You'll find out why in a minute. By an adult at a record show. It was the one in Orlando that we just reviewed, but it was the previous one a few months ago. So yeah, let's open it up. And you ever wonder why, by the way, cardboard boxes and packaging have these squares and circles with different colors and all of these numbers? It's kind of an interesting thing, actually. That is done to identify what colors are used on that package. So as you can see, we've got this kind of pinkish color, yellow, blue, gray, and all of these other colors and patterns and different shades, black, you know, you name it. And somewhere on this box, those colors are used. Why they do that, I don't know. But I just know that that's what it is. It's done to communicate the colors that are used in the packaging, and I think it's interesting. If anybody has any information on more about why they do that, let me know. Now, this isn't 100% complete, but at least the box is present, so yeah. Oh, it looks like I do have the manual. That's pretty neat. That's really, really cool. It's a complete set, pretty much. I'm sure there was some styrofoam in there, but it's pretty cool to have the packaging. And like I said, there's some key differences and similarities between these two products. A little bit hard to tell from this angle, but this one is a bit smaller than the other one. Let me pull this one over so you can see. It is not quite as wide. Depth is similar, but not quite as wide. If we look at the device itself, it's got this cool sort of molded appearance of Big Bird himself. I was a big fan of Sesame Street, and I think I've mentioned it before, but Big Bird Goes to China. I have this very specific memory of being sick home from school. And again, my mom bought it at like a garage sale and brought it home to me, and really good memories.
Oh, swell.
Okay, so Fisher-Price there. This sort of manila yellow color with a green stripe. Hinges on the back, no connections. We got rubberized feet on the bottom of this one and a battery compartment loaded with C batteries. I think this takes, it's either 4 or 6. Anyhow, this actually is a battery operated record player. There's no AC power supply. And that is why it was in use at that record show, because it's a portable record player. It's rugged and it's down and dirty. It's lo-fi, but this guy is actually a dealer using it to test some records. So made in Hong Kong, 1983, Fisher Price Toys. So I guessed right on the date. Now let's go ahead and open it up. This one, the lid is still attached. We've got Big Bird and Little Bird. I learned that's who that is. I didn't know there was a character, Little Bird, until I got this. And a viewer was like, yeah, it's called Little Bird. And the music notes on the back. And let's look at the plinth area. So similar idea. It's going to be a rim drive turntable. It's got this brilliant built-in 45 adapter. And the controls, again, designed for grubby little hands. Has a similar retractable cartridge design in here. A similar mechanism. I'm pointing to something you can't see. A similar, I guess you would call it a mechanism or design, where this piece comes into contact with that tone arm and pushes it back in place. A single speaker, again, mono, lo-fi. And you just push your thumb on the nose of Little Bird to cue up your record, and the platter starts spinning automatically. And the only controls down here are the speed, 45 and 33. It shows a gradient, but there's really 2 positions. The gradient is for the volume. So it's a volume knob and a speed switch. I am intensely nostalgic, if you can't tell by now. The one on the left brings a lot of memories and positive feelings. Everything from, my parents sacrificing to get me something of value and something that would be useful for me, introducing me to music. This device really did do that. This was like my first music device, and it was mine. I shared it with my brother and sister, but anyway. The one on the right, I'm sure is the same thing for a lot of people. I don't have the emotional connection to the one on the right. I do love Sesame Street. I do love Big Bird, like I said. Never had a clue about Little Bird until this thing. But this device was new to me, but it's very, very cool. So let's go ahead and do a side-by-side sound comparison and see which one sounds better. I'm guessing this guy does, just because the speaker's a little bigger. This is also just taking into consideration these specific devices. So if one is, got bad capacitors or whatever, that's going to reflect the final outcome. So there may be better examples of these particular models. So I'm just doing a side-by-side of these two as they are today. Not the most scientific test, but it ought to be fun. Anyway, I'm curious. I literally think of these shows. I'm like, would that be interesting to watch? Would I watch that? And if the answer is yes, I hope there's at least one other person that agrees with me. Staying in the realm of hyper nostalgia, this, man, I have so many memories of this book. Such an incredibly nostalgic thing for me. I know I've said that a lot, but yeah, this book came out. Our family did the thing where the Christmas books were put away with the decorations. So when this book came out, it was a special thing. And when I saw that there was a record of this, I'm like all over it. Even features my favorite Disneyland Records label. So that will be our test subject for today. It is a 33 RPM record. Without further ado, here we go. The 1978 Fisher Price.
When they arrived at Santa's house, what a lovely surprise was waiting for them. Mrs. Santa had cooked a Christmas dinner with lots of turkey and plum pudding. She cooked special fish for Stuart Seal and Katie Kitten, and there were crunchy carrots for the rabbits and juicy corn for Patrick Pig. After dinner, they gathered around the biggest Christmas tree you ever saw. There were presents for all, and then there were balloons to blow and games to play. My, what a party! Before they left, they all went to see the 6 little reindeer, all tucked up in bed.
Pretty considerable motor noise. Now let's try to pick up where we left off on that record with the Big Bird player. I will tell you at the outset, the speed of this unit's off. It's a little slow. But just try to listen to the sound quality more so than the speed on this.
Cracked his whip. And off they went in their one-horse open sleigh. And do you know the song they sang? As they raced down the hill towards town, the two baby bears were bouncing up and down, laughing all the way.
Okay, final thoughts. They're very close, which is probably because I'm sure they share a lot of the same internal components. The audio to me sounded so nearly identical. Obviously, there was a speed issue, a little slowness on the Big Bird player, but the tonality seemed pretty dang good. Obviously, the styli, even though it's the same cartridge model for each of these, the stylus could be a different point in its service life. One could be newer than the other. One could be a little bit more blunted than the other. That being said, they sounded pretty much identical. The motor noise on this was almost non-existent though. So in terms of motor noise, definitely this one wins. That one was pretty loud. I think it needs some lubrication. Yeah, it's so subjective. I'm still going to pick the one on the left because it's the one I grew up with. But the one on the right, you could take it anywhere without a cord. Oh, it's a toss-up. So I'm going to have to let you guys decide which one you guys think is the best between the two. All right, my friends, and that's going to do it. I hope you found this enjoyable, interesting. Let me know down in the comments below if you've had either one of these or what your first record player was. But that's going to do it for today. Happy record hunting. See you next time.